You know the story, right? A lone hero wages a one-man war on crime. It's a classic. But what happens when you run that story through a machine? Today, we're not looking at a vigilante through the lens of justice, but through the cold, hard data of an AI named Nexus. And what it finds? Well, it changes everything.
So right off the bat, the source material for this whole analysis hits us with this quote. It's a pretty clear signal that we're not here to just celebrate some hero. No, this is all about questioning a story of power, money, and violence.
All right, let's get into it. At the center of all this is one man, Preston Drake III. And this guy is living two completely different lives. You really have to get both sides of him to see what's truly going on here.
Okay, so by day, you've got Preston Drake, the public figure. He's the guy who talks a great game, right? He can go on and on about systemic causes and wage stagnation. But then the sun goes down and he becomes the Viper. This same guy hops into a military-grade vehicle to wage a brutal personal war on the very symptoms he was just talking about over a glass of expensive wine.
So what's the Viper's whole deal? His philosophy? It's brutally simple, and honestly, it's kind of appealing on the surface. You see a crime, you stop the person committing it. Physically. End of story. Problem solved.
And look, if you just go by his personal scoreboard, you'd think he's winning. Big time. Over 31 years, he's personally stepped in and stopped 4,217 criminal acts. You see that number, and you think, wow, this guy is getting it done.
And we're not just talking about petty theft either. His record shows he's gone after the big fish, corrupt officials, entire criminal networks. He's taken them apart. So yeah, if this was the only data you had, you'd be totally convinced. You'd say, case closed. The Viper's way works.
But this is where the story takes a sharp turn. Because now we're going to zoom out. We're going to look at that exact same 31-year period, but this time through the totally objective analysis of Drake's own AI, Nexus. And Nexus, well, it comes to a very different conclusion.
Okay, so get this. This is the one stat that blows the whole story wide open. Despite those 4,217 interventions, despite dismantling all those gangs, the overall crime rate in Natural City hasn't gone down. It's actually gone up by 18%. His entire war, it isn't working.
So Nexus looks at this, and it does what a computer does best. It points out the flaw in the logic. It basically says, hey, what you're doing is failing, so maybe stop doing it? Maybe it's time to quit punching the symptoms and start actually treating the disease.
And this is where you really see the two approaches clash. Nexus says, look, instead of spending millions on more body armor, how about funding mental health centers? Instead of buying more surveillance drones, what if we invested in affordable housing? It's even telling him to use his massive corporate empire to give people a living wage. It's the same resources, just aimed at infrastructure, not weaponry.
Now this is a logical, data-backed plan. So why would a guy as smart as Preston Drake just reject it out of hand? Well, to answer that, we have to stop looking at citywide statistics and start looking at one man's personal tragedy.
And there it is, the emotional core of his entire 31-year war. For him, this was never about crime rates. It's personal. It's about revenge. This single traumatic event has fueled his entire adult life. But is that the whole story?
Because Nexus, of course, has more data. It fills in the blanks that Drake's simple story leaves out. The man who killed his parents wasn't just a criminal. He was a person. His name was Harold Vance. And he was sick, suffering from untreated schizophrenia because he'd been denied disability benefits 3 times.
And now for the most devastating piece of data in this entire analysis. Nexus just traces the chain of events. Step 1. Drake Industries, Preston's own family company, lobbies against a mental health funding bill. Step 2. The company saves a cool $4 million in taxes. Step 3. As a direct result of that bill dying, Harold Vance loses access to his medication. And Step 4. He murders Thomas and Martha Drake. The system that created the criminal who created the Viper was a system his own family profited from.
And you just can't argue with it. As Nexus says, with cold, digital finality, this isn't some theory. It's a documented fact. It has the receipts. Literally. They're all sitting right there in its database.
So the truth is out. The vigilante's entire mission, his whole identity, is based on a tragedy that his own family's corporate greed helped create. The logical path forward seems pretty clear, right? Change the strategy. Address the real problem.
This puts him at a massive crossroads.
What do you do when you're shown irrefutable proof that your entire life's work is not only ineffective, but is a response to a problem you are actually complicit in creating? How do you even deal with that?
His answer? He ignores it. He rejects the data, he rejects the truth, and he chooses to keep this cycle going. He'd rather stick with the simple, violent fiction of his war than face the complex, painful facts of where it all started.
And that leaves us with this final, really unsettling question. Preston Drake's story is extreme, for sure, but it points to something bigger. Why is it so often easier, maybe even more satisfying, to focus on a simple villain we can fight, rather than trying to fix the complex, messy systems that create them? That's something to think about.